Welcome into One-to-One Sports. The college football season wraps up tomorrow, so it's time to give a way too early top 25 for next season. Getting into it with some honorable mentions. And at 10, I have USC. I think their quarterback could be a strength in Maeva. I like their running backs a lot as well. Questions about the defense, typical with the Lincoln Riley team. And then they had arguably more talent this year and were disappointing, so couldn't put them top 25. 9, error. 9, I had Duke. Darian Mensah, I think, could be an upgrade over Malik Murphy. Andrew Anthony, a good addition at wide receiver. They should be right there again. Vanderbilt, Pavia back. Stower's back. Questions about the overall talent, but they've added some nice pieces from the portal on the O-line. They could be a top 25 team, and they're right there on the cusp for me. 7, Devon Dampier comes in for Utah quarterback. I think he could be the best running quarterback in the country potentially. I saw him beat my high school twice in the playoffs. Adding Wayshawn Parker, the running attack should be really good for Utah. Questions about health, though. 6, Baylor and TCU are pretty similar for me, actually, because Hoover and Robertson are back at quarterback, and a lot of other pieces back as well. TCU loses more skill position-wise, but also brings in more in the portal and recruiting, and I like them just a bit better. Still beneath BYU, though, who has Rhett Sloth back at quarterback and was really good this year. I think they're probably a little less fortunate in close games, and we're just outside the top 25. 3, Texas Tech. I like their quarterback, Baron Morton. I also like Joey McGuire as a coach. You lose Taj Brooks, but you went all in on the transfer portal, a ton of additions, and if it meshes well, I have them underrated. 2nd, Illinois. A great season this year, and Luke Altmaier's back, along with some key pieces on defense and the O-line. But I do think this year they overachieved. I think they kind of come back down to earth a little bit, just outside the top 25. And then Louisville is the team I had closest to making the top 25. What Jeff Brom's done with transfer quarterbacks and now bringing in Miller Moss and these true freshman running backs they had that were very good is enough to have them right there as the closest team to making my top 25. Moving into the top 25, at 25, I have Nebraska. Dylan Raiola back could be one of the better quarterbacks in the country, certainly one of the more talented ones. They've supported him with these transfer portal additions at wide receiver. Dane Key, Hunter, Pritchett on the O-line, and defensively bringing guys like Nawari and McCulloch with what they have coming back. The defense should be really good. The offense, I think, can be really good if Dylan Raiola takes the step I think he can. They're at 25. 24, I have SMU led by Kevin Jennings. I think the offense is going to be really good, especially I like Rhett. I think Rhett Lashley is a very good offensive coach, and I think Jennings could even improve. And they have some really good pieces coming back. You do lose some stuff as well, Romulo Brinson, Brashard Smith. But what I find more concerning, the reason I have them a lot lower than I think other people will, is what they lost on the D-line and what was a sneaky strength of this team in that pass rush. And that's why they're only at 24. 23, I have Florida led by DJ Lagway, and it's kind of the same thing as Nebraska. I think the receivers are going to be pretty good. You bring in Dallas Wilson in recruiting, Sturdivant in the portal, and Eugene Wilson gets healthy. Defensively, guys like LJ McCray will break out. Tyreek Sapp will be back. And overall, if DJ Lagway takes the step that a lot of people think he can and be a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the country, Florida can be maybe even higher than this, but I have them 23. 22, I have Georgia Tech, and this is all about what you're bringing back. Haynes King back, Jamal Haynes back, Malik Rutherford back. Sure, you lose Eric Singleton, but you replace him with Eric Rivers, who is one of the better receivers in the country. All that taken into account, I think Georgia Tech, especially with how they've played in big games, can win some big ones and beat the teams they're better than, and be one of the top 25 teams in the country and a sneaky playoff contender next year. 21, I have Indiana. Bring back a surprising amount, like Elijah Surratt and Cooper back at receiver. Replace Rourke with Mendoza. Signetti won Coach of the Year, and with what he did last year, hard to doubt that they'll at least be a really good team again next year. And the secondary already looks really strong. They come in at 21. Moving on to the top 20, I have A&M led by Marcel Reed, who I think improves in his second year starting and first full year starting, especially when you consider these wide receiver options they brought in Micah Hudson, Casey Concepcion, and Mario Craver. Don't know exactly what's going on with the whole Micah Hudson situation. Maybe they could drop if he's not coming back. But the run game should be there as well. Not only Marcel Reed, a threat with his legs, but Ruben Owens and Moss back. Main concerns I have would be defensively. Losing 3 guys to the NFL and Scourton, Turner, and Stewart could be rough, but there's a lot of talent on the defense, and I think it'll be good enough. And Mike Elko, a good defensive coach. I have A&M at 20. 19, ASU. Coming off a playoff appearance, maybe you think they should be higher, but you lose your best player in Cam Scatabo, replacing him with Kanye Udo, very capable running back, but he's not going to be Scatabo. The strengths of his team, Sam Levitt back, one of the better young quarterbacks in the country. Jordan Tyson back, one of the better receivers in the country, period. And then defensively, lose a lot to the portal. You bring in a decent amount, a lot in flux there. So certainly question marks, but what Kenny Dillingham has done with this team, overachieving like he did this year, I think he's proven to be one of the better coaches in the country. That's why I got ASU coming in at 19, should compete for the playoffs again next year. 18, the Auburn Tigers. This would be a huge leap for Hugh Freeze, and I believe year 3. And it's all about what he's done in the portal for me. And recruiting. But bringing 2 quarterbacks in Jackson Arnold and Ashton Daniels increase the chance I think they get good quarterback play. Then supporting him by bringing in Eric Singleton, Horatio Fields from the portal as well at receiver to add to these stud true freshmen they have like Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman. The receiving core should be one of the best in the country. You've added along the O-line, and then you've recruited really well along the D-line. You hope these guys break out, guys like Griner, and there's just a ton of talent on this Auburn defense. Put that all together, I think they're at 18 and have, a breakout season for Hugh Freeze and, job safety secured next year, at least when I'm looking at on paper right now. 17, Washington. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see them in a lot of people's top 25s, but Damon Williams, third quarterback on this list I saw playing high school. Rayola was there, Devon Dampier, honorable mentions. And, he is also one of the better running quarterbacks in the country, very shifty. Beat my school, yeah. But I think they almost had Washington higher, but then Jonte Cook left, and I feel like they need one more receiving option. You have your number 2 option coming back. Decker DeGraff was one of the better true freshman tight ends, and Jonah Coleman was like a 1,200-yard rushing guy. Excuse me. So all that's there, but I thought Jonte Cook could have been another really good option for them, and without that, couldn't put them quite as high. But Jed Fish, what he did at Arizona, I think he's going to do here. And now you bring in all these Arizona transfers and Jacob Manu, Takario Davis, Uyangale to support the defense. I think this team's going to surprise a lot of people, be a dark horse threat in the Big Ten. 16, I have Kansas State, and it's about Avery Johnson taking the next step and being the quarterback that so many people think he can be. You lose Giddens, but outside of that, pretty much all the top receiving options are back, and you bring in Lincoln Cure, who can maybe be like a freshman All-American at tight end. Dylan Edwards back as well, and a lot of the defense. And they're always good at special teams. We know that. They score non-offensive touchdowns. They had 9 wins this year, and it was a down year. I think all the pieces are around Avery Johnson, and if he can become a top-level quarterback, Kansas State could definitely win the Big 12 and be in the playoff next season. They come in at 16. Entering the top 15, we have the LSU Tigers, led by Garrett Nussmeier, who's one of the handful of quarterbacks who could be a first-round pick next season, maybe a Heisman contender. Caden Durham figures to be one of the better running backs in the country. O-line, question mark, because you lose a guy like Will Campbell, Emory Jones. But the receivers, pretty much always good at LSU, and you bring in Barian Brown and Nick Anderson. And then defensively, I think you're going to get after the quarterback. Having Harold Perkins fully healthy, having Whit Weeks back, bringing in Patrick Payton, having Jack Pineburn from the portal. I mean, I think it's all there. A little bit of some questions in the secondary, but with a good pass rush and what I think will be an explosive offense, it's enough for me to put LSU at 15. 14, I have Iowa State, and a second year in a row where they're just bringing back a ton of talent. Pretty much everything outside of Higgins and Noel is going to be back. And even then, you bring in a guy like Soul from East Carolina, helps out. Carson Brown could maybe break out. And he brought in other portal receivers. And then Hanson and Sama back at running back, Rocco Beck at quarterback. I think it's all there for Iowa State to once again be in the Big 12 title, competing for a spot in the playoff. 13, I have the Michigan Wolverines. Either Bryce Underwood or Mikey Keene is going to be a huge upgrade at quarterback. And the receivers aren't going to be a top unit by any means. But bringing in the UMass transfer, I'm forgetting his name, I think Anthony Simpson, and then Donovan McKinley from Indiana, and then bringing back guys like Patrick O'Leary, Samaj Morgan. The receivers are going to improve. Tight end won't be as good with Loveland gone, but receivers overall will be better. Quarterback will be better. O-line's intact. That's going to be better. And the run game's going to be there again with Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes. Defensively, you lose some of the best defenders in the country in Mason Grant, in Kenneth Grant, Will Johnson, all potential first-round picks, Johnson and Graham certainly. But some guys are back, right? Hausman's going to be back. Barnes going to be back. So the linebackers you like there. And then you bring in a guy like Damon Payne, Trey Williams to shore up the interior. You bring in the Metcalf brothers to help in the secondary. Zeke Berry should be back. And they're always really well coached. I think Michigan's going to get back to competing for the playoffs, for the Big Ten. And we saw that momentum, I think, kind of at the end of the year, beating Ohio State, beating Alabama, this recruiting surge they had. They could even add 2 5-star offensive linemen potentially with seeing what goes on with the highest available recruit at the portal, not portal, recruit, just high school recruit at offensive tackle. All that momentum, I think, carries over and leads to them being 13, and I could see moving them up by the next time I update this ranking. At 12, I have Tennessee, and this is about a belief in Heupel and Iamaleava. I think Josh Heupel is one of the better coaches in the country. I think Iamaleava is one of the more talented quarterbacks in the country. You're going to lose a lot. James Pierce is going to be gone. Dylan Sampson's going to be gone. There's question marks at receiver. But I think Heupel is going to – they've recruited well, so you hope guys step up there. And I think Heupel's going to coach them so that they do. And then Iamaleava, you hope, takes that step forward and with an improvement in quarterback play can offset some of the losses they have elsewhere and be a similar caliber team, which will have them around the same range they were this year at number 12. 11, I have South Carolina, and there's just a ton of young talent on this team you hope gets better. Lenore Sellers, what he did the back half of the year, he's going to be amongst Heisman favorites. Dylan Stewart's going to be one of the best edge rushers in the country. Josiah Thompson, one of the best left tackles in the country. Nick Harbert, receiver. You bring in the Utah State running back. Shane Beamer's consistently overachieved with this team. I think it's all there for South Carolina to be a playoff contender. They're going to have really high expectations, though, for the first time in a while. We'll see if they live up to them next season. But those expectations are certainly merited. And I have South Carolina at 11. Now, let's get into the top 10. At number 10, a team I almost put even higher, and that is the Miami Hurricanes. Carson Beck replacing Cam Ward. Not going to be as good, but I think he could have a bounce back year with better receivers at Miami than he had at Georgia, even if Miami receivers overall are a downgrade from this year to next year, losing guys like Restrepo, George, Arario, Brown. But CJ Daniels comes in. Trader could be a breakout player. Lofton, a good tight end. Maybe they bring in someone in the next transfer portal window. But either way, I think they're still better than what Georgia had with all those drops, so Beck should improve. And then the O-line, real strength this team led by Francis Mauigoa, so the run game should be good. Beck should be protected. I think he'd be very good. And then the defense, I expect a complete 180. Maybe the most improved unit of anybody in the country will be the secondary with all these transfers they bring in. Wisconsin corner, U of A corner, Zachariah Poyser from Jacksonville State. And there's even more. I'm forgetting Michigan State. And then O.J. Frederick was a true freshman All-American at corner. So the secondary could actually be one of the better units if it meshes well. And then on the D-line, you hope guys like Armando Blunt and Justin Scott break out and support Ruben Bain, who could be another guy who could be the best edge rusher in the country, and David Blay out of the portal. At 9, I have Notre Dame, who might be the defending national champion. I can only hope. I think CJ Carr takes over here, and I think the passing game improves greatly with I think receivers will improve, and you bring in Malachi Fields, and Carr I think is just a better passer. You'll still have Jeremiah Love and a young O-line led by Anthony Knapp should be good as well. Defensively, you lose a lot, but I think there's guys ready to break out like a Bryce Young, and they're always well coached, and I think Marcus Freeman has cemented himself as one of the best coaches in college football. It's enough to me to trust that some of that can be offset by what they do in recruiting, development, and coaching. Notre Dame comes in at 9. 8 is where I have Penn State. They were lower, just a few days ago when I was prepping this video, but then Katron Allen returns, Nick Singleton returns. We already knew Drew Aller was returning, but then Zane Durant and Denai Sutton as well. Sure, you lose your 2 best players in Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren, but Luke Reynolds is a super talented young tight end you hope to replace him, and then bring in portal receivers. Hopefully, better receivers kind of offsets the loss by Warren as well. And defensively, you lose Tom Allen, but I think the talent's still there, and I think they're comfortable with what they have on staff to replace Tom Allen and, again, be one of the better defenses in the country competing for the playoffs and the Big Ten. 7, I have Ole Miss. I think a lot higher than other people are going to have them with what they're losing to the draft. But I think Austin Simmons, what he showed me in that Georgia game, he's ready to take over. Lane Kiffin killed it in the portal again. The receivers are going to be there. I think the O-line will be solid as well. And I think defensively, people see what they lost on the D-line, but don't realize what's behind them and what returns. Sunshine Sunterine Perkins is back as one of the top edge rushers. And then you bring guys like Deshaun Womack. Hopefully, I'm saying his name right. And there's someone else I'm forgetting. The other Umani Amelin. Hopefully, I said that right. And then there's also top level players behind guys like Ivy and Nolan. That I think the D line will still be really good. Questions in the secondary, sure, but I think this year Ole Miss will be underrated as opposed to last year. We actually overrated them a little bit. I think this could actually be the breakout season they thought last year was going to be. Number 6, Alabama. This is about a talent thing. They're just going to have one of the most talented rosters. I still believe in DeBoer as a coach. The big question is probably quarterback because Ryan Williams and Jerry Bernard, you're going to have good receivers. You even bring in Horton from Miami. I think the running backs will be good. The O-line will be at the very least solid. And then defensively, you bring in good players like Jaleel Hurley at corner, the Colorado linebacker, Damani Jackson's back. What's his name? Xavier Brown back at corner. So I think there's talent on this defense to be good as well. There's talent all over. It's just will Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell or Austin Mack, whoever it is, what level quarterback player you got to get is a big question there. So if it's bad, I probably have them too high. If it's average, maybe still a little too high. I think it's slightly above average. That's where I have that. Why I have them at number 6. Moving into the top 5, number 5, the Clemson Tigers, and this is just they bring almost everybody back. Starting, Cade Klubnik could be the Heisman favorite, maybe coming in next season. Certainly, I'm one of the handful of guys who will be favored to win it. You bring back all your top receivers: Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, what's his name, T.J. Moore as well, and then defensively, a unit that struggled. You bring in Tom Allen as DC, and all the talent is there. I'm talking Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, Max Helt comes in from Purdue. Vic Burley could be a breakout. Amari Adams, 5-star freshman. True freshmen have always made a big impact for Clemson. Sammy Brown and Wood as there at linebacker. And then the secondary, Lucas, Hampton, Khalili Barnes, Avion Terrell. I mean, the talent's there. I think with the right coach, that unit is going to be really good next season. The offense, I think, also is going to be really good. I didn't even mention 4 of 5 offensive linemen back. Clemson's one of the handful of teams I could see winning the national championship next season. Number 4, Ohio State. This is a team that loses a lot, but will have a lot of top-end talent as well. Jeremiah Smith, probably the best receiver in the country, will be back next year alongside Carnell Tate. Julian Sayin probably takes over for, what's his name? Will Howard. Man, I'm blanking. Getting tough at the end of this video. But defensively, you're losing a ton. Guys like Jack Sawyer, Tui Millau, Tyleek Williams. But Caleb Downs, maybe the best defensive player in the whole country, will be back to lead that unit. And they just recruit so well that I expect Ohio State to be fine and still be here in the top 5. That's why I have them at number 4. 3, another team where I have kind of a blind trust in Kirby Smart, this Georgia coaching staff, and the recruiting, because you are losing a lot. Like, the receivers should be better, bringing in Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas. Gunnar Stockton I expect to be solid. Nate Frazier there in the run game. But defensively, when you lose Malachi Starks and Jalen Walker and Micaiah Williams and Damon Wilson, the portal was one of the guys you hoped was going to take over for them. I mean, I don't know what Georgia's going to have to actually, fill these holes. I just trust that Kirby Smart's going to find the guys to do it. And it's just kind of a blind trust with Georgia at 3, because on paper, they're probably closer to where I had Alabama. So it's just, I think Kirby Smart's the best coach in the country, and with what they've done the past, half decade, I trust them to be here. At 2, it's the Texas Longhorns. Arch Manning takes over for Quinn Ewers. CJ Baxter and Quentin Wisner, I think, will be their running back. But the O-line is questions with Banks leaving, and I think, is his name Cameron Williams leaving? So that's probably the biggest question on offense. Maybe you want to say receiver with Bond and Golden gone and Helm. But with Ryan Wingo back, DeAndre Moore, and the guys they recruit, I don't have a ton of questions there. Defensively, also not a ton of questions. Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, Malik Muhammad, Trey Moore might be back. He brought in transfers. I think the defense is going to be really good again. And I think you're going to get good quarterback play and great coaching from Sark. It's all positives for Texas, but I just couldn't put them over number 1. The Oregon Ducks. They have Dante Moore, who I think, with the reports I've heard and read, in terms of I can't pronounce his name at all, but the freshman quarterback who just transferred to Cal, thought he had no chance of beating out Dante Moore. What Dylan Gabriel said of him, I think he's going to be really good. Could be a similar level to Arch Manning. And then you bring in Mekhi Hughes. I think Noah Whittington will be back. And then they're also losing top offensive linemen in like Cornelius and Connerly. But you bring in guys like Isaiah World, Emmanuel Pregnon, is it Harvey from Texas State? These guys that are gonna kind of supplement that O line. I think that's huge and kind of gave them the edge. Along with I think Evan Stewart coming back, kind of I like the Oregon receivers a little better because they have the young guys that Texas has, like Jurion Dickey, Gatlin Blair, bringing in DeCorian Moore, McClellan. All that's there. Then they have kind of the vet and Malik Benson transferring in, Gary Bryant returning, and then the true number one in Evan Stewart. And then similar defensively, Mateo Uyangale, one of the better edge rushers, Barry Alexander to supplement the interior, one of your top linebackers back as well. Young talent like Elijah Rushing, you hope steps up, and you bring in top safety and Dylan Thiemann to help out the secondary. With all that said, they were number one last year, and then it fell apart. You hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it will. And right now, Oregon, on paper, to me, looks like the best team for next season. Let me know, though, who would you have had in your top 25? Who did I overrate, underrate? Who did I leave out? Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe. Until next time.